Okay, so hey guys, it's Melissa and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Melissa Ellen and I do these true crime videos. For those that are with me, you guys know I'm working on my audio and video and I'm back in my office because of it. Whatever, just roll with me. My light just went out. I'm not even gonna think about it because that's not what's most important, right? Remember, it's about presenting the story of our victim. That's what we're gonna talk about, and we're just gonna just forget what's going on with my video right now. Let me give you the headline version of the story we're gonna talk about today. A mom from Texas doesn't go to the babysitter to pick up her son after work. They track her movement and they find her on surveillance camera. And she got into an argument at a bar, left the bar kind of hurriedly, ends up in a road rage accident where she points a gun, and then ends up at the apartment building of her ex-boyfriend where she sneaks into the garage and then disappears. Unfortunately, those are the headlines version of Prisma Reyes, and that's all you would know, but that is not her story. And this 5-hour span is insanity, and it's crazy to figure out, and it's all over the place, but that's not who she was. Something happened, something crazy was going on in her life that day, and I want to tell her story, and I want to put her information out there because she's never been found. It's been a year, and nobody knows at all. She literally just vanished in Texas. So let's talk about Prisma Reyes. So I actually ended up working with a YouTuber and podcaster by the name of Red Rum Media, and I ended up talking with Kay, and she is putting together a very thorough podcast. So, you know, like YouTube videos kind of, I'll give you guys like a high level. Some of them are a little more in depth and some of them, you know, just do like the basics. And then you go to a podcast and there are, you know, several episodes are very detailed, very lengthy, give you like every bit of information and speculation. So that's what she's putting together. So we work together to look at the information so that I can concisely put this together for you guys. And then if you want to get more involved in raising awareness, there's a GoFundMe, there's a page for her. There's just so much that they're doing and trying to help her be found, bring her home to her family. She is desperately missed. So I'm gonna link all of Kay's information for you guys. And I know she and I were talking yesterday and she didn't want to have an official release date for sure, but it's coming. And she does already have some videos posted on YouTube. So I will link everything down there for you guys. And I encourage you to go take a look at what she's doing. There are a lot of YouTubers here on YouTube that do true crime that I really appreciate. There's some that I don't. And there's some that just do it differently. And so like, maybe it's not for me, whatever. I like that there's all those different types out there. So whatever you're into, but definitely hers is more of a channel that gets really in depth, really, really detailed. So if you guys like those parts of my videos, then definitely go check out Kay. Prisma Reyes. She was 26 when she went missing. Her full name is Prisma Denisee Peralta Reyes. I had actually looked into Prisma's disappearance right when she disappeared. It was right when my channel was new and there just wasn't enough information. And the problem I was having with getting the information is that Prisma's family, her mother is Spanish speaking. And so a lot of the interviews that were being done on the Spanish channels, which is great because it was raising awareness for that community. But there wasn't a lot of awareness being raised for everyone else. I mean, honestly, I barely was able to get any information on this case when I looked at it a year ago, and not that I didn't even make a video. None of the CCTV had been released. There was no information about this road rage accident. There wasn't even a lot. It was just like this mom went to a bar, got in an argument, and then goes to the ex-boyfriend's house and is never seen again. There's so much more. She was 26 at the time of her disappearance, and she was living in Mesquite, Texas, which is about 15 miles from Dallas. She moved to America when she was 5. She was born in Mexico, and her stepfather is Dan. Now, there's a lot of interviews with Dan, and not as many with her mother, Lilia. And that is only because Dan speaks English, and it's just more comfortable for him. He wants to talk to the media. He wants to be involved in that regard, and it appears that Dan and Lilia are not together anymore. And Lilia has been speaking with the Spanish channels and so they're covering both of their bases. And so if you don't see the mother a lot, that's why the stepfather is doing a lot of the speaking. So when Prisma was 5, they got married and they moved to America and they moved to Texas, and Prisma learned English within a year. They said that she was doing so well in school that by the following year, she was recommended into a Magna, which is like a higher learning or gifted classes for kids. And so she did that. She ended up graduating high school early. She ended up joining the National Guard. She became a U.S. citizen. She also went to school and got her degree, and she got her paralegal license. I also saw she got her auto insurance license. So by 26, this girl was doing so much. Not the headlines that you saw of this like crazy woman who left her job, and no, not at all. She was a very dedicated mom. She was the mom that made sure her kid was at all the events. There's so many pictures of them out eating, Dave & Buster's, ice cream, just everywhere. That little boy was her life. She adored him. I know the feeling. Little boys do that to their moms. Now, Prisma was raising him alone. As per usual, I'm not going to put many photos of her son. So the photos that he's in, he will be blurred only because he is a minor. And this little boy needs to be protected in this. So I'm not going to even include his name. His father, though, his biological father, is Arturo. Here's what I understand of Arturo and Prisma. They were together. She got pregnant. They ended up breaking up when she was 3 months pregnant. They decided, I don't know if they decided, whatever happened, Prisma was like, no, I'm going to raise him by myself. He doesn't want to be involved. He was paying child support and did have visitation, but it appears that he lived several hours away and he wasn't exercising the visitation. It also seems that they did go to court on a couple of occasions to discuss the child support. I don't want to just judge either way because I know it can get finicky on either side when you're dealing with custody and child support. He was making comments that she only cared about the money and always wanted to raise the child support. They were always going to court. And I was thinking, oh, she was a paralegal. Maybe she kind of put him through the ringer. And then I realized that he was barely paying $50 a week and not seeing his child. So whatever it was, he was not seeing the child prior to Prisma going missing. Okay, so he wasn't involved in the little boy's life. According to friends and family, everyone said there was no history of alcoholism or drug abuse or mental health. There was no concerns along that line. They said she drank on occasion, drank on the weekend, not like she had ever not got drunk before, but she didn't have any long-standing history of having problems with alcohol or drugs. So before we start the timeline, Prisma, like I mentioned, was a paralegal, and she was working as a paralegal for about 6 or 7 years. Now, during that time, she had also taken other jobs. So at this time, 2 weeks prior to her going missing, she had taken a job working at a used car lot as a receptionist. And a lot of people are putting out a lot of questions like, what? She went from a paralegal to work at a used car lot. Like, what's going on? The only thing I can kind of gather is that, in all honesty, a beginning paralegal, and their 6 years is still beginning as a paralegal, it's not really that high paying of a job. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But when I looked into it, it really looks like her pay really still would have been in that lower end range of a salary. So there's a possibility that maybe the car lot was just offering some sort of a benefit to her, and she decided to take that job. But according to her family, there wasn't anything big that they knew of. It was just, she just took this new job. So she's working at 123 Auto. She's been there about 2 weeks. She has made some mention to her mom that, she's not, the other girls there, maybe they're just kind of not getting along yet. They're not jiving with each other yet. On the day that she disappeared, apparently that morning she dropped her son off at the babysitter and then she went to work. She got there early and parked in a parking spot. Apparently that annoyed one of the girls there. She's like, no, that's my parking spot. And Prisma was confused because there's not assigned parking. Whatever it was, it's mentioned in some other videos that there's some sort of an issue and it was a problem. But I don't think that it had anything to do with her disappearance, except for the fact that when she went to lunch, she got distracted by some other things and made the decision not to come back. So I assume the reason she was comfortable with not coming back is that she didn't like it there. And she was kind of like, you know what? This is just some job. I only worked there 2 weeks. No, never mind. I'll find a new one. So she goes to lunch at 1 o'clock because she ends up meeting with Ryan. Now, Ryan is we're going to call him her boyfriend. They had dated back in 2016. I don't know how long they had dated for sure, but they dated for a minute. And during that time, there was an episode of domestic violence. My understanding was there was a lot, but I don't know for sure. I only know there's a documented case of domestic violence in 2016. Ryan was charged with assaulting Prisma. When police arrived, she had bruises on her, and she said that he had assaulted her. They end up breaking up, and he ends up taking a plea and gets a misdemeanor. I don't even think he served much time, and he paid a fine. I see rumors that that was an issue between them because he's a loan officer or mortgage officer, and a felony would have affected his licensing, and so he blamed her, which abusers often do. As I often like to insert into any of my videos, now's my little PSA for you. You are always better than anyone who ever lays a hand on you. Always better. It is never okay. They are never right. They will make you think it's your fault, and they will make you think that you did things, but they are wrong. So we're clear. We know this. There are resources everywhere. I will make sure I put them down below for you guys, okay? If you are ever in a situation and you want to get out and you don't know how, send me an email. I'll give you some tricks, okay? If they're shady or they're tricky, I don't give a crap. Because if you're in a bad situation and you need out, you get out. Your safety is always the most important thing. So Prisma, the relationship is over, okay? And it appears, though, at the end of 2018 or the beginning of 2019, they run into each other. And in February of 2019, he actually ended up moving into her apartment in Mesquite, Texas. He moves into her apartment and they start discussing like finances and how they're going to take care of the bills. And they decide that's not going to work out. And he decides to go get his own apartment. And he ended up getting an apartment in they call it was like an upper scale part of Dallas, it looked like. And he ends up getting an apartment over there by himself. But apparently the two were still talking. So the night before she disappeared, which would have been of April 16th of 2019, I can see from phone records that they did have 2 phone calls that night that lasted about 25 minutes. The next day is April 17th of 2019. It's a Wednesday, and again, she drops her son off at the babysitter. This is a babysitter she'd had for a while, and the babysitter had a son that was also in school at the same school as her little boy. So the babysitter would take the kids to school in the morning and then pick them up after school, and then whatever time Prisma was still at work, then she would keep the little boy and then she'd pick him up. At this current job, their new schedule they agreed on is that Prisma would pick him up around 6:37, in that range. She leaves from the babysitters and then she goes to work and she's there until about 1 o'clock. During that time, she had some conversations with friends and she had some conversations with her mother. Everything was fine. There was nothing going on in her life. She told them a little bit about the annoying with the girls at the office, just talked about her son, Easter, things along those lines. Like everything was fine. And she also had 1 phone call with Ryan, which was at 12:05, which lasted for 4 minutes. So then she leaves around 1, and at 1:12, she calls Ryan again, and they talk for 15 minutes. And then at 2:30, she calls Ryan again, and they talk for 5 minutes. What I gather, I'm gonna be very clear with you. There's not an actual police report released with an official exact timeline, but based on everything you can put together from the interviews that Detective Barrett with the Mesquite Police Department did give with Investigation Discovery, there's some information in there. There's some information in some of the reports and some of the information that Kay was able to get from the detective as well. So kind of putting this together a tiny bit. We might be off by a little bit. She gets to the E bar, which is located in Dallas, Texas. She is there until about 3 by herself. And I'm gathering she's there from about 1:15 to 3 o'clock by herself, sitting at the bar, just casually having a drink, hanging out, no problem. Ryan meets her at about 3. Now, the thing is that we know from some conversations that have been released from within the bar that people are saying, again, a lot of rumors, that she was on the phone with a male and that annoyed Ryan. So we're guessing, we're kind of putting this together based on her phone records. At 2:57, she makes a phone call. It appears to be a lawyer in another state. It times out, that phone call lasted 4 minutes and times out with everything else. I believe that's when Ryan arrived at the restaurant. He arrives, she's on a phone call, she ends the phone call. Now, whether or not that was actually really another guy or they was just annoyed that she was on the phone, who knows what the situation was. It appears they then have lunch and have an argument. They both leave at 4 o'clock out of the restaurant. Prisma then goes to her car and Ryan leaves and goes to somewhere else, like another city. Like he left and goes to hang out with friends. Prisma goes to her car. She sits in her car on the phone with her babysitter, Maria. She's on the phone with Maria and they talk for 52 minutes. Now, Prisma's been in the bar for an hour and a half by herself and then an hour with Ryan. And now she's sitting in the car on this 52-minute phone call, which was completely out of character. Looking back at her prior records, it looked like their normal conversations were anywhere from 7 to 8 minutes. That's how they normally talk. Hey, this is my new schedule. This is what I've got going on at work. This is what's going on with my son, like everything like that. So they would just be in the loop with each other. But this phone call lasted for 52 minutes. I would like to tell you that we have a lot of information about that call, but we don't. I want to say this is completely unrelated, and I'm hoping that Maria is just uncomfortable. But Maria, after this happened, she talked with the family a little bit and then didn't want to talk anymore. And she ended up changing her phone number. There is a ton of reasons why that could be. Number one, this is still an open investigation. She could have been advised to, just for safety's sake, whatever. Number two, she did make references that she felt like bad people were involved. That could just be someone who doesn't like to be involved with bad things and they're just scared. There's also always an issue. I don't know how to properly say this, but some people don't like to speak with media, especially if they're worried about any sort of citizenship within their families. So I'm not saying like Maria, like, oh, maybe no, I'm not going there, but like just might, some people were raised that way, that like we don't talk to the media. That's just, we don't do that. So there's a lot of reasons why that could have been. And I'm just trying to guess all kinds of ideas of what it could be and trying not to assume how her babysitter could have possibly been involved in her disappearance to change her phone number afterwards. So I'm just throwing that one out there. So they have this phone call, but I think Prisma went back inside of the bar during this phone call. At some point in time, I know she clicked over because Ryan called and said, no, like, hey, I'm on the phone, I'll call you back. But the phone call lasted 52 minutes. She had to have gone back in because that phone call ends at 4:57. And when I tell you what happened between 4:57 and 5:08, it's insanity. So it's hard for me to believe that it happened in that frame. I think that she had went back inside earlier. She goes back inside though. We know that. She goes back inside of the E-bar and is cut off from drinks and is not served, and there's a disagreement. So I don't know if she went back in and then ends the phone call and tries to get a drink. They're like, no. You were here earlier. You had a fight with the boyfriend. We're not serving you again. Nobody really knows exactly what it means. There's also rumors that Ryan was actually wearing glasses the entire time and said his name was Matt. Again, I don't know. So let me tell you what happened in that 11 minutes and then why I think that it had to have been a little bit longer. I think she went back a little bit sooner because supposedly in that 11 minutes, the bar cuts her off, asks her to leave, gets into an argument with her, calls the police. She leaves, hides behind a dumpster, and then gets in her car, takes off out of the parking lot. Let me show you that video. Goes 4 miles up the road, gets into a road rage disagreement with 3 girls in a car, and ends up pulling her gun out from underneath her seat and pointing it at them. Her family said, no, that is not in her character. No, it makes no sense. They're so confused. So she does have a gun. She does own one. According to her stepfather, Dan, he is pretty sure that it was a legally owned gun, that she was in the National Guard. She lives in Texas. She believes in guns, and that she had decided to purchase herself in March a gun for herself. It was a 9mm pistol, registered. She had a CCW and everything, and she had a gun. And she was storing it underneath the seat. A lot of people were asking why underneath the seat. And what I've always been told is that if you have a gun and you have children, you don't keep it in your purse, you keep it elsewhere. I would truly like to tell you I have more information about the road rage incident, but I don't. I don't. I was able to get access to their names. I looked to see if I saw anything out there about any other reports or news articles about it, and there was nothing. So I don't know what the incident was. Was it not that it's simple. That's never simple. That is absolutely petrifying and totally not okay. I don't know what was going on. But all I know is that those 3 individuals phoned the police and told them that an unknown assailant in this vehicle had aimed a gun at them, and they were able to track that back to Prisma. I believe that right there, that road rage incident where she was pointing a gun, is the reason why police initially took her case so serious. Cadaver dogs and bloodhounds immediately looking for her. It's probably because of that. Can you imagine if police get a report that this woman is aiming a gun at people and then they get a report that she's missing? They obviously were concerned that she was going to do something to someone. You know what I mean? What's going on with her? But that's all I know that happened. So she leaves this road rage incident. The police are called. She does not stay. She takes off. She heads towards Mesquite. Mesquite is about 15 miles from Dallas. So she's heading home. She doesn't get home though. She gets halfway there and she suddenly makes a decision to turn around and head back. They have that information based on her cell phone pings. Now, the road rage incident was reported to police at 5:08 p.m. At 5:25, she makes an outgoing call that doesn't appear it was a 1 minute, doesn't appear it was answered, to an old friend of hers. She then makes phone calls at 5:27 to Ryan, which are not answered. At 5:47, she arrives at Ryan's apartment complex. These apartments are located at 3600 Roseland Drive, and they're called the Olympus at Ross Apartments. And what she does is she pulls up in front, and the frames skip a little bit, and little bits are cut out when it was released. So it makes it look like she just wham, flies up and jumps out of the car. No, she pulled up very aggressively, and it definitely makes a stop. Looks like she's looking in. And I wondered if she was contemplating just pulling into the parking garage, but number one, you need a key to get in. So she could have piggybacked and followed a car in, but I think she already knew that this building was pretty secure, and so she was gonna need parking permit in order to park there. She gets there and she's looking in, and she ends up making 4 phone calls to Ryan. Again, he's not answering. At 5:49, she does make a 2-minute phone call. It appears to be to another friend. I don't have any information on that phone call. And then I think I said it backwards. She made that phone call to a friend and then 4 phone calls to Ryan, which he did not answer. And then what she did is she entered into the garage herself. She walked in. So she waited until 2 cars went in and the door was the garage was open and she grabbed her stuff and she ran in. Now she left her gun in her car, but she did take her purse and cell phone with her. Now at 5:57, she's inside of the garage and she's standing near the elevator. She has another problem. In order to get in the elevator, you also have to have a key card. So she can't get into the elevator. So at this point, she wants to go hold Ryan to ask like, hey, let me in. She ends up accidentally calling an ex-boyfriend by the name of Chris. She calls him and he said the first call, she just kind of hung up. It was kind of, he didn't know what was going on. There's like a ruckus or whatever and it hung up. And then she called back and they talked for 4 minutes. During this call, she starts out by saying, what room are you in? What apartment are you in? What room are you in? What apartment? He wasn't really sure. He's like, what are you talking about? She's like, I know you're here. Like, what? Let me in. Like, what number? I don't know where to go. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And she ends up saying Ryan. He's like, oh, I'm not Ryan. This is Chris. Like, I don't. And she's like, oh, okay. And she ends the call. But he said it was really weird because she was so confused. At 5:59, as soon as she ended that call, she makes another call to Ryan. And then at exactly 6, she ends up making another phone call to another friend. She had called this person at 5:25 and it was just for 1 minute. I don't know if they answered. I don't know what that was about. But she ends up calling them again. There's a lot of speculation about the people she's calling because they don't seem to make a lot of sense. It's not like she called her mom. She didn't call her sister. She didn't call her stepdad. She didn't call her best friend. She's calling these random people. And so thinking maybe she's calling out of her text list or something, but she ends up calling this guy named Juan, who is a photographer friend. But he's not like a super, super close friend of hers. Like he's a photographer that she knew doing photos. And he's in Florida at the time. So he's like, hey, what's up? And she is like confused. She doesn't know where she's at. She's lost. It doesn't make any sense. And he's asking her like, where are you? And she can't figure it out. And he's like, okay, well, I'm in Florida, but I got someone in Dallas. I'm gonna have somebody come pick you up. Like, send me your location. And he was trying to tell her how to like ping her location. I'm thinking like go to Google Maps and send your location. And he said she was so confused that she couldn't figure out how to do it. And then the call ends. She makes one more phone call to Ryan, which is not answered. And then she walks around the corner of the video and she's never seen again. Now, the detective mentions in his video that she is seen getting on to the elevator, okay? We don't know this for sure. We don't know what time. We know that is the only bit of verified information about her getting on the elevator. It is rumored inside of some chat forums that she was seen by a man and a son, and she was in the elevator and she was crying. We don't know what floor she went to or if she did or didn't. There is rumors that she was seen up on the 5th floor. It's also rumored that that's the floor that Ryan lives on and that she was up on the floor of that parking lot. A woman says that she saw her sitting up there up against the wall crying, and she was near a silver car that had the trunk open, and that she approached the woman and was going to ask her if she needed help, and the woman was like, no, leave me alone. And she said she had seen the woman before with a tall white man. Could be Ryan. I don't really know. I also saw one comment, I don't even know if it's even possible, that again, somebody saw her up on the roof. Now, the roof could mean the garage. So it's one of those garages, because at first I was like, well, how could she even get up? She can't get in the elevator. And then I had like one of those complete ding dong moments. She could just do what a car does and drive up. Okay. So she could have easily walked up and got to the top, and she could have been up there. She could have tried to find Ryan. Like, who knows what happened? Now, of course, you're thinking, okay, Ryan has her. Police aren't giving this little bit of information. What they have confirmed is that Ryan was not there at the time that Prisma arrived. What about later? I have read that he was either in another city. Now, when I say another city, so you got like Dallas, and then you got all those outer lying cities, that he was in another city hanging out with friends. I've also seen that he was on a date that night. So either he didn't come home that night and that's why they're not considering him a suspect, or he did and he brought a date home with him, so they're not considering him a suspect because he had someone with him. I don't really know for sure. I mean, I'm thinking like most viable suspect. He has a history of being violent with her. There was issues in their relationship. He blamed her for things involving his work. The worst thing that ever happens is the minute an abuser has something on you that you feel guilt about, when you shouldn't feel guilty. You don't feel guilty for calling 911 when somebody puts their hands on you. And if they lose their job or anything because of it, it's not your fault. They shouldn't put their hands on you. And so I just wonder so much. So she ends up not arriving to pick her son up from the babysitter, and Maria ends up making a call to the police at 9:30. She wasn't there at 7:30. She's kind of texting her, calling her, can't get a hold of her, giving her a benefit of the doubt, like maybe something happened, whatever. But by 9:30, she calls the police and reports her missing, like something bad has happened. And police contact her stepfather, Dan, by 11:30, asking, hey, have you seen her? They're already trying to find her. They did end up doing searches at the apartments. They used cadaver dogs. They used bloodhounds. They could not get anything viable to work with. There was really no hits. They have covered her cell phone records. The only records we have seen was her mother was able to get was her calls. We don't have records of her text, and we don't have records of her data. So that's what the police department, and I'm sure they're working with that information to figure out, because there's going to be a lot more info in there, as well as all of the video surveillance from the bar, the full video of the whole time she was there. I mean, that's some good quality video. So we'll get a lot more of that. There's going to be more video of the elevator. So there is more information that will come out. But this is what we have that we can release right now, so we can try to help raise awareness on where's Prisma. The people of interest, okay? So yes, we have Ryan, the boyfriend. We know that there was a prior history of domestic violence. We know that they had some issues, and we know that he was the last person to hang out with her, and she was at his apartment when she disappeared. He also has a criminal history. I found his DUIs. There's other things, but he has 3 DUIs. So it appears, I'm speculating, don't come at me, I don't know you. I'm not even including his full name because I don't really know. Police aren't naming him as a suspect, and that just makes me think they know something we don't know. But I will say that, obviously he has an issue with alcohol and putting his hands on women, or he did with her. Arturo is definitely, he's a suspect because of his actions, but he doesn't appear that doesn't truly appear that it fits the timeline, okay? He lived about 7 hours away. He was not involved prior. They only had disagreements over money. He was not seeing the child prior. But as soon as she went missing, he did file for full custody. And that did definitely make people, whoa. But I'm not surprised. I mean, he doesn't want to pay money. So he's just going to go get custody and then, have whoever he lives with watch the child. I'm not saying maybe he had better plans. Who knows? But it doesn't look good. And then, okay, I don't have any problem throwing shade at him because of this. He goes to court and they decide that he can exercise his visitation, but that the child will stay with the family. Now, he can exercise his visitation because he's always had visitation. He just never used it. So he can, as long as he agrees that he will not tell the child what's going on with his mother. I don't know what they were telling him at the time. I don't know if maybe they were protecting him and saying she was away, she was traveling, she was working, something. But whatever it is, that family, her family helped raise him. They knew him. They loved him. They cared for him. They knew what was best for him. And they knew that that was the best decision. And the judge agreed. Arturo, though, gets his visitation. Not only does he tell the child, he takes the child to the apartment. We're talking a 6-year-old. A 6-year-old. He takes this 6-year-old to that apartment complex and walks him right up to Ryan's door. I don't know how he got there. Ryan wasn't there. But yeah, that's what he does. He takes him, tells him, and then he takes a photo of the little boy with a missing Prisma Reyes poster. A missing poster of his mother. He took a photo with him standing next to it and then posted it on social media. Men like this are not good. He believes in, and he'll try, I just already know it. I can feel it, like I already know. He's going to justify it by saying, well, yeah, I'm telling the truth, so it's fine. Just because it's true doesn't mean it's not harmful to like the well-being of this little boy. Yeah, he does not need to be a father right now. As far as I know, I think the child is staying with family, but I didn't get into the custody courts or any documents like that, but of course I care as a mom. I'm like, is he in a good situation? And he is. It is also brought up about the babysitter, and I get it. It is weird. It is so weird that they had such a long conversation that day, and then they hadn't prior, but like, okay, that happens. It is really weird that she doesn't want to help the family any further because there's so much information in that phone call. Like, was she in her car? Did she go back inside? Did she mention Ryan? Was she talking fast? Was she talking slow? Like, there's so much more. There's no way you had a 52-minute conversation and all you talked about was Easter, and no, there's more. So, but do I think she's a suspect? I don't really know. I don't know anything more about her because she hasn't said anything. I know that she did call and report Prisma missing, and she kept the little boy that night with her to keep him safe and then took him to school the next morning. Prisma's stepfather was traveling that night. So he was on the other side of the state and he had to travel back. So he got back the next day, and then that's when he was able to get the little boy. But I mean, Maria took care of him and got him off to school and everything. And I don't know. I don't know if there's anything more. I don't know how they connected with each other than they had children that went to the same school. So I don't know what the backstory is there. So some of the rumors around what could have happened, some speculation. So we mentioned that she was seen near a silver car. It has been reported that there might have been somebody close to her, even maybe Arturo, that sold a silver car quickly after this happened. That might be reaching. I'm not really sure. I think that the podcast is going to look into that. The other options of what could have happened. So maybe someone took her there. Ryan, maybe she hid somewhere and waited for him to come back. Maybe she just sat up at the parking garage, leaned up against the wall, and the woman was the only one that happened to see her there. And maybe she just sat there and waited, and then he did come home. I'm not really sure. I wish we had more. There is no cameras up on that floor, and there's no cameras inside of the building. There was only like at 2 elevators or something like that, the parking garage, and that's about it. So there is no camera where she could have been seen. So what we do know is that she did not leave out the same way she came in. There's always the possibility that she wandered across somebody bad and horrible, and they just took an opportunity and harmed her. There's also I hate this one, but there is a possibility that she could have been even more intoxicated than she realized. I don't know. She'd been cut off for a while and she was walking and talking, but she was confused about something. So was she drugged? Was she just having one of those days where she just drank too much at the wrong time of the day? It was like 80, 90 degrees that day. Could that have had something to do with it? My concern is if she ended up inside of a dumpster bin. It's a apartment complex. So, you take your trash down to the big, huge bins. Those huge bins are rolled out to be dumped. And when you live in big, huge places like this, they're often rolled out several times a week, up to daily, depending on the apartment complex. And it is always possible that maybe she fell in, maybe she got in, to hide or to get cover. Maybe just not thinking right. Not like she would normally climb into a trash can, but like just having one of those worst days of your life and just made a horrible mistake, and maybe she could have got taken away. So I don't know. I know that they've looked at that. I know that that was considered. I don't know what came of it though, and I don't know if they got the cans on time. I don't know if they got all of the cans. I don't know. This was a pure mystery. I have no idea. I literally, when I saw the video of her in the elevator a year ago, when I first looked at this case, and I wrote in my notes that I thought she was drugged. And I don't know for sure, because I do realize that the video makes it seem like it's skipping. It's because it's measuring, it's trying to collect the frames in the video. All of her cell phone activity completely stops right there. Like that moment we see her, she's at the elevator, she's on the phone, and she kind of leaves off screen. And then I think she gets in the elevator, and I think we just don't see that. But then that's it. She's not seen again. There's no activity on her phone. It's a complete mystery. So I'm wondering what you guys think. I think it's always clear that we make sure we focus these cases. We are talking the Dallas Mesquite area. We are talking April of 2019. I have Prisma Reyes photo up for you this entire time, so you can take a look at her. Anybody has seen her in that area. Anything unusual. Her purse, her phone were never found. The clothing that she was wearing was never found, as well as her. Her car was discovered the next morning. So just so we're clear, she did not go back to her car. Her car was towed away the next morning when somebody walking their dog came across it. It was blocking an alley, but it appears that alley might not have been used very often. So she pulls up and parks there at about 6 p.m. and 8:30 the next morning, it does get towed away. So please, especially if you're anywhere near that area, share my video. I want to get her case out there. I want to get her face out there and see if we can help her be found. If you guys know anything, I will put up the police department's information for you. It's the Mesquite Police Department, Detective Barrett. And there is a GoFundMe that I don't put up GoFundMes very often. This one is being done by the family, and the money is going directly towards helping gather this information. Kay's been working hard for her podcast to try to get access to the police reports through the Freedom of Information Act. And it's costly, okay? It costs a lot of money. So they've been raising money to do that, as well as any extra money will go towards the reward for information on Prisma. So I definitely support that GoFundMe, and I'll be contributing as well. I thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for this video. I thank you for being here. Sorry about the lighting. I hope you guys can... Is it fine? I can't really tell. I'm so blind. So I hope it's good, and I love you guys. I say this at the end of every one of my videos. Hug your babies and hug your loves. Life is literally precious. Enjoy every minute of every day. I love you, and I will see you in my next one. Bye, guys.